Minecraft Dungeons, The Rise of the Arch-Illager, made by Matt Forbeck. Prologue. Cole wasn't sure why a bunch of undead mobs had detected to attack the waiting party of illagers who'd been roaming through the lands outside the village he adopted. But he didn't question his good fortune. He'd been spoiling for a fight all week. Now, on his otherwise dreamy rainy day, he finally had one on his hands. A smaller hero might have found a comfortable place to sit, any clear stretch of grass, or even a comfort tree stump. Who would do, and might have watched an entire battle unfold in the clearing below the hill on which he stood. It would have been easy to just let the two sides fight it out, wasting all no energy on each other. In the end, there might only have been a few foes left over to take care of, or maybe just a one-off. But Cole was a man of action, and a hero in his own mind, if he did not in the minds of others, so helped him. The fight looked like fun. He wasn't about to let all those fools down. They'll have it all of it. Below a loud warless battle cry, Cole drew his jagged iron sword and charged down into his fray. A wide and welcoming grin creased his face. The undead mob were too focused on current foes and noticed the screaming hero racing towards them. But the illager spotted him and began to break off the fight. Cole cackled at the reaction. Clearly his reputation as a mighty warrior had deceived him. He couldn't understand why the illagers would flee before him. They had lives. They valued the undead, who were born with such treasures, continued to ignore him, though. They chased after the illagers instead. Cole knew it was terribly fair to attack foes from behind. He never worried about such things after all. The undead mobs, right? If there were so many of them, it only seemed wise. He wandered into the skeletons and zombies, swinging at them from behind. Thwack! Whack! Whack! He mowed them down like fresh grass, and his blades sang they meant like song of death. Death to the undead! He shouted, as he struck again and again. If he stopped to think about it, which he wouldn't, those words wouldn't make any sense, but he didn't care. The undead then weren't about to collect him. Cole smacked a nearby skeleton, knocking it into piles of bones with the same set of his sword. He stopped to the shade eyes from the lane and watched as its bleached skull hide over the fleeing illagers and ran in front of them. They skittered to the halt before it, horrifying as it was sudden appearance might meet for them. Cole threw back his head and laughed at their reaction, but when he was through, he saw the remaining skeletons and zombies had finally figured out it was a bigger threat, and he had to turn on them. Skeletons spread out and flanked him, already preparing him with arrows from the bows. Meanwhile, the pack of zombies lunged towards him, filling the air with groans. Cole's smile grew even wider. "Bring it on!" he shouted, as he plunged into the crowd of zombies, swinging his blade back and forth, smashing down foes with every strike. There were downsides for being a hero. Well, it was a lonely job in a strange land where you couldn't make a bit of sense out of the local language. You would wound up saving the place over and over, and no one ever bothered to say thank you. The only people who really got him were other heroes. They didn't always want to have much to do with him either. But Cole didn't care about that. This was he lived for. He never found more alive than what he was beating down mobs and taking the loot. The zombies crowded so thick around Cole said that they couldn't all get him. Despite this, the skeletons kept shooting at him, planting arrows in back of the zombie palace. Cole was spun about like a top hacking away from the sword in every direction. Zombies fell away from him, topping like saplings before his axe. Few of them managed to lay a rotten finger on him, and the nose glanced off his armor, leaving him unharmed. As a crowd of groaning zombies around him thinned and out, finally made its way through, and the meal caught him on the shoulder. It stuck in his armor, and if it had been fired into a tree, the tip of his punch showed the iron and stabbed into his skin. Although not much further, the magnitude of the injury didn't matter to Carl. The fact that he'd been damaged at all made him see red. "Hey!" shouted the skeleton. He shouted at the skeletons. "That hurt!" Yes, Carl put down the last of the zombies with a few quick blows, and then he turned to the skeletons. "You pay for that," he told them. "With your bones!" He flanked the monsters, moving to line up in roughly row. He couldn't all shoot at them once. He began chopping his way through them, like a farmer taking down grains at a harvest. The creature prepared with him arrows, sticking several more into his armor, but all they did was make him angrier. Fighting skeletons was supposed to be fun for him, not dangerous. As the last bony beast fell before his mighty brain, Carl let a loose howl trumpet and spun around who else might want a piece of him. His eyes felt upon the hapless Illagers, who turned to face him. Their weapons out and ready. Apparently, they found the courage to defeat the undead. They were too ruthless to shiver. At this approach, the foes of any brain and their heads would have fallen to their knees, begged for mercy. But the raiders actually charged at him, and they stood a chance. The ridiculousness of moment brought a wrath to Carl's lips once again. The anger he felt at the skeletons faded away, and he roared with delight as he threw himself and his sword against the oncoming Illagers. Before he reached them, though, one of the Illagers, a particularly short one with a massive nose, raced forward, spun about, and shouted something into his consciousness. He seemed pointing something to the something that Carl had long decided wasn't worthwhile with him. It came to such people. "They won't listen," Carl said to a little Illager. "Even though no one could understand them, they never do." Out of moment curiosity, they held up and let the tiny guy speak, and the imp wanted to keep his buddies from trying to take off Carl's head. As well, he wasn't going to stop him, but he wasn't going lower to a sword either. The little guy gibbered across his Baltic language, beginning the hours to see a reason, to be swayed by the power of his logic, emotion, and words. Carl more for it as the way he would have if he spotted the two-head pigging woman around the village. Amazing, but when he decided the point, it didn't matter how crazy it looked. It wasn't going to make a difference. At the end, he was still going to whack it with his sword. Probably. The other just listened to the little guy for a moment, but they steamed at him, clearly unhappy with what he was bragging about. The little guy's voice was almost to a squeak, and he reduced himself for what could have a spot in the actual beginning. It ended when the Illager standing right in front of the little guy, reaching out and smacked him on the side of the head with a flat of his sword. They put a sudden end to the squeaking, and had the little guy topple right over, senseless, before he hit the ground. Before the big Illager could even call for an attack, Carl took him out with a sharp snap of his brain. He recognized a fight starting when he saw one. He wasn't going to get flat-footed. "It's on!" he shouted at the Illagers as he built one into them, knocking them over like bowling pins. "It's on!" Oh, For the course of the next few minutes, Cole took down each and every one of those Illagers, but some of them fought well. Most of them didn't. Some of them tried to flee. He learned what them. In this experience, they allowed them to get away. They only come back to bother him, later or to torch the village to annoy him in some other way. The only way to make sure that he didn't happen was to get rid of them for good. He'd managed to have felt bad for it, but were the ones who had attacked him. Even after he saved them from those undead mobs. Not a one gratitude for many of you, he said as he surveyed the battlefield and its absence to anyone stand against him. So, that's what you get. A high-pitched groan sounded from across the field, and Cole poked his ears and squinted around to see if he could detect where he had come from. As he stumped him at first, after a moment, he spotted an Illager soaring on the far side of the field. He said as he showed over the shoulder. Once I've ever thought I got them all. When he reached the softly groaning Illager, he realized his mistake. This was one much smaller than all the rest. Ah, Cole said as he recognized the Illager. You tried to talk some sense to the others. The little guy with the big mouth. He kneeled down next to the creature and turned him over to his back. Nice try there, fella, he said with a chuckle. I mean, it's worthless, but I respect the effort. He soared over the Illager, gazed up with the dismay, and tried to retreat. Since he was already on the ground, all he could do was bob away on his butt, right up until he bumped onto the tree snap behind him. Cole got up, put away his sword, and dusted off to his hands. I'm not gonna hurt you, he told the little guy. You did me a solid by distracting that big fella anyway. Once I took him out, the rest of you little bands of mischiefs went down easily. The neither little guy had wanted to let out a low moan. Cole edged up into the fallen Illager and leaned over to get a better look at him. That was one he stabbed to start the battle. With them, honestly, he had a hard time telling the bandits apart. That's all right, he told the little guy, who got at him with fearless strike eyes. He doesn't look like much to affect to anyone at the moment. Cole backed off a few steps and smoked down to the little guy. Neither do you. As he felt mistress at the moment, all he wanted to do was keep the mobs away from the village, and he managed that. The been the way last injured Illagers just didn't seem to want the bother. An idea struck Cole that sometimes it would make seem clever rather than lazy, at least in his own estimation. Tell you what, he said to the little guy, as the other Illagers seem to be miserable to manage to listen, this is your lucky day. I'm gonna let your groaning pal there go. You know why? The little guy couldn't possibly have understood Cole's words, but maybe he got the gist of them from his tone. Either way, he shook his big nose in the tail just at the right time. Cole flashed a wide smile. Because you're going to go back. Whatever you want in scummy Illagers call home. And you're going to tell the rest of your kind to not come around here anymore. This village is under my protection. You get it? And when your people ask me what happened, you and all your friends want to tell me one more thing. Cole held his index finger and emphasized this particular point. One thing, right? The little guy gasped at him. Why he tried to press what to do? Maybe he'll give up. Maybe he'll finally got it. In any case, he nodded so hard in agreement, it looked like his head might have fallen off. Tell them my name, Cole. Pointed at himself. Tell them, Cole.